Welcome back to our moving diaries where we have 3 days left to pack up our house and move. I started by taking down all the decorations and my sister came over to help and we got to work emptying cabinet after cabinet while the guys started loading the bigger items in the truck.
Family support and future plans unexpectedly became the center of attention after 2 separate Bates family updates took on a life of their own online. Carlin and Zach Bates drew immediate attention when they appeared helping Katie Clark prepare for her move, reigniting conversations about who remains closest to her these days, while Trace and Lydia Bates had followers talking after a Florida trip sparked speculation that the Sunshine State could eventually become their next home. Neither update was especially dramatic on its own, yet both generated far more discussion than anyone probably expected. Katie Bates Clark recently shared what was meant to be the final chapter of her moving series, bringing months of updates to a close as she and Travis prepared for the next stage of their lives. In the caption, Katie thanked followers for following along throughout the journey and admitted she could hardly believe the series had finally come to an end. She explained that everything was officially packed up and ready to go, adding that she couldn't wait to show everyone the new house. While the message itself was simple, it carried a clear sense of excitement. Rather than focusing on what her family was leaving behind, Katie seemed completely focused on what comes next. That feeling carried throughout the video itself. After spending months documenting different stages of the moving process, this update felt less like another moving vlog and more like the finish line. The packing was done, the preparations were nearly complete, and a major chapter in the Clark family's life was coming to a close. For many followers, the post represented something bigger than a change of address. It was the conclusion of a journey they had been watching unfold piece by piece, and the beginning of a completely new chapter that Katie appeared genuinely excited to embrace. But despite that message, viewers quickly found themselves paying attention to something else entirely. As the video unfolded, many followers immediately noticed that Carlin and Zach Bates were actively helping throughout the moving process. What could have been a minor background detail quickly became one of the most discussed aspects of the entire update. Instead of focusing exclusively on the new house or the logistics of the move, comments began centering on the family members who showed up to help. Some followers expressed how nice it was to see family rally around Katie during such an important transition, while others specifically highlighted Carlin and Zach by name. Before long, the move itself was sharing the spotlight with the people standing beside her. Part of the reason those appearances attracted so much attention is because followers have spent months trying to understand Katie's relationships within the Bates family. Ever since previous social media posts led many viewers to believe she had gone through a particularly difficult season, ordinary interactions have often been viewed through a much different lens. Instead of seeing siblings helping with a move, some followers see clues. Instead of seeing a routine family moment, they see evidence supporting theories that have been discussed online for months. Whether those theories are accurate or not, they continue to shape the way many people interpret Katie's updates. The reaction on Instagram reflected that perfectly. While there were plenty of comments congratulating Katie and Travis on reaching this milestone, an equally large number of responses focused on family support. Followers repeatedly described Carlin's presence as heartwarming, while others pointed out Zach's involvement and expressed appreciation for seeing family members step in during a stressful transition. Several comments referenced healing, encouragement, and moving forward. The overall tone remained overwhelmingly positive, but what stood out was how often the discussion returned to the same theme: support. Carlin in particular seemed to become a central character in the conversation. Many followers already view her as one of the family members who remains consistently close to Katie, and her appearance in the video only reinforced that perception. Over the years, viewers have watched the sisters support one another publicly, interact online, and appear together at various family events. Because of that history, some people interpreted Carlin helping with the move as more than a simple act of kindness. To them, it represented continuity. It was another reminder that regardless of whatever speculation exists surrounding family relationships, the connection between Katie and Carlin appears strong. Zach's involvement generated its own discussion as well. While much of the attention often falls on the Bates sisters, several followers noted that seeing Zach actively helping stood out because viewers don't always get the same visibility into sibling relationships involving the brothers. His presence added another layer to the conversation and further fueled the idea that Katie still has meaningful support within the family. Even people who weren't interested in speculation seemed genuinely happy to see familiar family members showing up during such an important moment. Once screenshots from the post began appearing on Reddit, however, the conversation took on a completely different tone. While Instagram followers largely focused on positivity and support, Reddit users immediately connected the video to one of Katie's previous social media posts that generated significant discussion. In that earlier message, Katie suggested that only a small percentage of people remained by her side during a difficult period while many others disappeared. Whether she intended those comments literally or figuratively, followers clearly haven't forgotten them. As a result, Carlin and Zach's appearance in the moving video quickly became tied to those lingering discussions. Several Reddit users argued that the video effectively confirmed theories they had already been discussing for months. Some suggested that Carlin and Zach belonged to the small group Katie was referencing when she talked about people who stayed by her side. Others pointed out that they also appeared to be among the relatives she interacts with most frequently online. To those viewers, the moving update wasn't simply about moving. Instead, it became another piece of a much larger puzzle they have been trying to assemble for quite some time. What made the Reddit discussion particularly fascinating was the contrast between those trying to connect the dots and those insisting there were no dots to connect in the first place. Some users treated the video almost like confirmation of theories they had held for months, while others argued that followers continue reading far too much into ordinary family interactions. Yet regardless of which side people landed on, everyone seemed to be discussing the same thing. Very few people were debating the move itself. Instead, they were debating relationships. That contrast may have been the most revealing part of the entire situation. On Instagram, followers saw a moving update and celebrated a family milestone. On Reddit, many people watched the exact same content and immediately began discussing family dynamics. Two audiences looked at the same video but walked away talking about completely different stories. Katie may have intended the post to mark the end of her moving journey and the beginning of a new chapter. Yet much of the conversation ultimately centered on the people who appeared beside her along the way. While Katie's update reignited conversations about family relationships, Trace and Lydia Bates found themselves generating a very different type of speculation after documenting a recent trip to Florida. What started as a family getaway quickly evolved into a conversation about the future, with many followers wondering whether the couple could eventually make the Sunshine State their permanent home. Rather than focusing solely on vacation highlights, viewers became increasingly interested in the possibility that Florida represented something bigger than a temporary destination. The idea gained traction because followers felt there was an unusual amount of attention being given to the lifestyle and overall appeal of the area. As the trip unfolded, discussions began shifting away from beaches and sightseeing and toward what life in Florida might actually look like for Trace and Lydia. Before long, viewers were openly debating whether the couple could be considering a move, what might attract them to the state, and whether this trip represented the early stages of a much larger decision. Of course, there was no dramatic announcement, no moving date, and no official confirmation that a relocation is imminent. Yet, the possibility alone was enough to capture people's attention. In many ways, that uncertainty became the story. Followers weren't just watching a vacation anymore. They were imagining a future, discussing possibilities, and wondering whether Trace and Lydia could eventually follow a completely different path than many expected. Interestingly, both updates followed a remarkably similar pattern. Katie posted about moving, and followers focused on the people helping her. Trace and Lydia shared a trip, and followers focused on where that trip could eventually lead. In both cases, viewers looked beyond the surface details and searched for a larger story. Whether discussing family support systems or the possibility of a future move to Florida, followers found plenty to analyze. And once again, two relatively ordinary family updates ended up creating much bigger conversations than anyone probably expected.